Hello, everybody. We're a couple minutes early, so please do not stress. We're not getting quite ready to start, but I saw that several of you were in the waiting room, and I thought I would just invite you in real quick to do a sound check with me if you don't mind. So if you are present and have access to a keyboard and you can hear me and see me okay, would you do me a huge favor and just type me a note in the chat box to let me know? I see Sammy is typing. Linda's typing, that's a good sign. Hello, 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 my friends. Okay, and can you hear me okay? I just, excellent, excellent. Just got really warm all of a sudden, and I have a fan on, and so I have earbuds just in case I needed to plug them in, but I just don't like having them in if I don't need them. So if you couldn't hear me okay, I was going to suffer with my earbuds. But if you can hear me okay, then I will not suffer with my earbuds, and I will be happier. So wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. I see lots of familiar names. I started to say faces, but I can't see your faces. I sure wish I could. We will give it just another minute here before we actually start with the presentation. So if you want to tell everybody where you're dialing in from, that would be awesome. I know many of you, so I know where most of you are, I think, but maybe say hello to the group and let people know where you're dialing in from. My guess is we're going to have people from all over. So Linda's in New York. Awesome. So it's going on 7 o'clock, I guess, there. Sammy in Houston, Texas. So I'm going to Texas on Friday. I'll be there for the weekend. Not Houston. I'll be outside of, I think I'm outside of Fort Worth, but it's been quite an interesting conversation trying to figure out exactly where I am going. I'm going to the headquarters for the American Institute of Stress this weekend. So that'll be cool. And it is in Mineral Wells, Texas, which I believe is maybe 90 minutes outside of Dallas, as far as I know. So Sandy, you may know more. So Lauren, hi from San Diego. I don't know where you are. I'm out in Poway right now, and it's a little warm. It just kind of got heated up again. We had just had a nice cooling going on, which I was really enjoying, I have to be honest. So welcome to the rest of you who are dialing in. If you are by a keyboard and you can say hello and let everybody know where you're dialing in from, that would be great. I know many of you love to participate and ask questions and be interactive, which of course I love because it feels a lot more like we are together. But I know many of you, like I am most of the time on webinars, also may be in a situation that you can't be typing on your keyboard. I know we've got at least one person who's dialing on the phone, so of course I understand that as well. If you're not able to chat, and if it's going to cause you stress to do so, then certainly do not. Okay, so we are just a minute after, and you who know me know I love to start on time. So this is our September Stress Mastery webinar, and this is a very interesting and exciting webinar for a couple of reasons. First, right off the bat, I want to let you know that we are getting ready to launch tomorrow morning, well, kind of tonight, but tomorrow officially, the new Stress Mastery online course, which is super exciting because we have been working on this for a very, very long time, and a lot of people involved, many of whom are here with us on the webinar today. We're just really excited to get this thing out there. So I wanted to let you know about that, and at the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you some information about how you can get early access after the webinar and a special discount. It's also kind of funny because this particular topic came to me last year, actually, when I was going through one of my difficult bouts of depression, anxiety. I think we need a new word for that, by the way, but kind of a cyclical state where I was feeling really stressed. And I just started thinking about the most fundamental things that I could do to take back control of my own brain and my mind and my emotions. And these 7 habits just became really clear to me. So I started writing about it. Is one of the ways that I guess I do my own therapy is I write. And I try to come up with really practical tools that I can use. And then I guess I beta test them on myself. I see how they work. And if they stand the test of time, then I like to share them with people. So The online stress mastery course actually talks about 5 of the habits, and the habits are integrated into the course. There's actually 2 more that are in the book that are, I think, probably the most powerful. We'll talk about those tonight as well. And so for those of you who are on live, as a special thank you for being here, I wanted to share with you an advanced copy of the 7 Habits book. So we will be sending that out to you following the webinar, along with a recording to the webinar, so you can have access to that. And for those of you who are watching the recording, I totally understand life is busy, and I know many people in other countries can't get here at this time frame. So please know that there will be other opportunities to get the book once it launches. I just wanted to be able to share something for those people who were able to be with me here as a thank you. And plus it'll recap a lot of the information that we're talking about together. So with that, I'd love to invite you to just take a moment to check in with yourself right now and just allow yourself to do what you need to do to be fully present. I'm going to plan to talk for about 30 minutes and make sure I save time at the end for questions. So I'll be going through pretty quickly. I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want you to be stressed. But I want you to do whatever you can do to be fully present. So close down other applications that might be open and running if you can close the door, whatever you need to do to just be fully present. It will help you to have a better experience and actually reduce stress right in the moment, just by not having so much stuff coming at you. I really always encourage people to try not to multitask, and I know it's hard because we all have so much going on, but multitasking is literally toxic to the brain, and it does kill brain cells. And I'm so passionate about that because if you can't actually be here paying attention and absorbing this, I always feel like it's better for you to just go do what you need to do and then come back and be fully present here. That's how we oscillate our energy to not only be more present, but to also be healthier and to protect our brain from the damage of chronic stress. So please, if you can do that, be fully present. So let's talk about stress. It's funny, my good friend Kay, who's also on the call right now, pointed out to me that doing the Stress Mastery program and doing our new coaching program around stress mastery, we're saying the word stress a lot. And it's funny how we can start to pick that up and actually start to absorb that. Turns out it's actually the first habit is watching the words that we use and being careful about that. Still, we are talking about stress. So I'm probably going to say that a few times, but just note as we're talking about that, your own kind of interpretation and experience of what stress is. So let's just start with that. What is stress? I know many of you have been on webinars with me before, so I'm not going to go too in depth on this, but I do think it's important to realize what stress is and get clear as we can on a definition we can use to then actually do something with it. Most of the stress that we talk about today, certainly in the research and the statistics, which are all super scary, that stress is killing us and killing brain cells and all that kind of stuff, we're really talking about a particular stress reaction that happens when stress goes on for too long and we're not able to do something with that energy and information. But there's lots of different types of stress. Getting married, which I used to say, I don't know what that's like, but I've heard it's stressful. Well, I do know what it's like now. And not only was the event stressful, although I managed it amazing, being married is stressful. It's change, it's new, it's amazing, it's wonderful, but it's change. Going on a family vacation is change. Even winning the lottery is change. And change triggers some sort of stress reaction. It all depends on how long that stays with us and what happens to it. So ultimately, I want you to be thinking about stress as a relationship. It's a relationship we have with the circumstances of our lives. And it's based on 3 factors: stress load, stress lens, and stress signature. Each of these could be its own webinar. I'm just going to touch on them quickly to get us to the habits. But in order to understand the way the habits work, you need to understand what stress is and exactly what we're talking about. I'm also going to give you some free resources to get more information on all of these different components. So let's start with stress load. Stress load is what happens when demand exceeds capacity, and it's based on how much demand and how much capacity. So as you see in the slide, if you're looking at the visual here, there's an intersection where demand starts to get greater than capacity, and you can think about this in any aspect of life. Finances, time, energy, it could be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, social. You're getting too much coming at you, you don't have enough capacity to cope, and stress is the positive reaction initially, the positive reaction that occurs to help you bridge the gap between the demand and the capacity. The load is what happens as that time frame or as that gap continues. And so the type of stress reaction you have changes based on how short-term or long-term the stress is. Hopefully this is all review to a lot of you who've been on my webinars before. But if you haven't, hang on. We'll come back to this for Q&A at the end if you have any questions. Two specific types of stress, acute and chronic. Notice we're not talking about what happens that causes the stress, because when it comes to our physiological reaction, it really doesn't matter all that much. It's our perception of what's happening. So if we perceive that the gap between demand and capacity is short-term or acute, we have certain reactions that happen in our body, in our brain, and you can see those listed here. It's mostly adrenaline-based. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, immune function goes up, memory goes up. Actually, in many ways, this is a helpful stress reaction. When it goes on too long, or when it's too intense, and so the brain perceives that it's going to go on for too long, it turns into a chronic reaction, which is an increase in cortisol. But I want to just point out that cortisol is not bad. You actually need cortisol. So it's a good thing that you have the cortisol to induce this longer term reaction. It's just the other things that happen along with cortisol include increased inflammation, glucose that's flooding through the bloodstream starts to get stored as fat, where it's metabolically active and actually harmful for us. And immune function and memory, focus, and attention all start to just kind of poop out, to be honest. They just can't stay on high alert for long periods of time. So it's very important that we're thinking about stress load and stress lens, which we're actually going to do a whole webinar on next month. I don't think I sent you that information yet, but in the recap email that you're going to get, there will be a link so you can go ahead and sign up for next month if you want to. I believe it's on the 10th, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, you'll get that link if you want to go ahead and sign up right away. We're going to talk more about stress lens, because I am so passionate that everybody understands that we all have a unique lens through which we see the circumstances of life that's primarily made up of non-conscious bias and our mindset. And it's so important that you understand where you're starting from right now, because you can change your lens through strategic brain training. So we'll talk more about that next week, specific to lens. But keep in mind that the 7 habits we're talking about will also start to shift your lens towards positive. So just keep that in mind for now. Just a quick little tidbit on that is ultimately the way that we process the energy and information in the brain is a hierarchy from the base to the top. So this is partly what creates that lens for us, is how we sense our safety, how we feel connected, and how we are able to focus our attention on the positive things, or even our ability to cope with the negative situation. So that really requires blood flow, energy, and information, all the process from the bottom up. And those specific techniques are going to help you to do this. The 7 habits will help you to do this, okay? So I had a couple other things. I'm going to hold off on the stress lens conversation till next month, because that's coming, and I want to talk more about practical application of how to change this. So if you want to do a quick assessment just on sensitivity, stress sensitivity, you can do that. I have a link here below, bit.ly/HSP assess. This will actually just test one component of your stress lens called sensitivity. This is sensory sensitivity, and this will give you a really good starting point to start to uncover that. And I do want to say, if you are stress sensitive, please make sure you join the webinar next month, because I'm going to give you lots of information on how to cope with that. I am highly stress sensitive myself. It's what makes me so passionate about doing this work, but it also means that we need to set very specific boundaries for ourselves. So I want all my sensitive people to come together for that seminar. And if you're not sensitive, please join anyway, because you probably know someone who is. And even if you're not stress sensitive, there's things you can do to adjust your non-conscious bias and your mindset so that when stress happens and you're feeling overwhelmed, you can shift it more effectively. By the way, little humor note, little stopping point. I don't know what's floating on around in the air right now, but my nose is getting tickled like cray cray. And it's just, instead of me fighting it off, I thought I'd just tell you. I always laugh when I'm doing a seminar, and it's like, you know, you either get stressed about something or just tell people what's going on and let them laugh with you, right? So hopefully you're laughing with me. I think this fan being on is blowing around some fairy dust in here, pixie dust. Okay, stress signature is how stress manifests for you. So stress load is demand versus capacity. Stress lens is the framework, the perception that you have based on non-conscious bias and mindset. And then stress signature is how it shows up for you. What are the signs and symptoms you experience when you experience stress? And we have a Stress 360 assessment that's part of the Stress Mastery course that actually gives you all three of these together. So a lot of these other assessments, I'm trying to give you to offer you components. If you want to do the full assessment, you actually will get access to that in the Stress Mastery course, which actually gives you all three and then walks you through in the course how to interpret it and specific strategies based on your unique profile. I think it is incredibly important that we start to personalize stress mastery protocols. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's not even an everyday the same thing approach. Really, based on our circumstances and our experiences and our sensitivities, this changes all the time. So I think it's important to have a way to kind of check in with that on a regular basis. And we also have coaches now who are trained to help walk you through that if you need additional support. Okay, so something is tickling my ears, y'all. Okay, that's it. That's the last time I'm going to say that. Actually, I'm going to smell my aromatherapy. Okay, now it's all good. Focus. Stress response is not just fight or flight. Again, if you've been through my programs, you've heard me talk about this. Fight or flight is primarily adrenaline-based, but we actually have 6 primary stress reactions based on different hormone cocktails, I guess you could think about it. We have fight, flight, we have freeze or faint, which is more that long-term stress reaction. We also have tend and befriend, which tends to be more of a female brain pattern-based reaction. So it's really helpful to understand in each moment, what are you experiencing? I don't have it yet. We're going to post the recording online. So once this new quiz is done, I will post a link to it in the comment section or in the description section of the video. I'm so excited about this. It actually just came from a conversation today for a new course I'm creating for LinkedIn. And we've got a new quiz we're going to do to actually help you figure out exactly which stress zone you are in. And based on that, which stress management strategy or recharge strategy would be most effective. So it's just going to be a series of really simple questions you can ask yourself, and based on where you end up scoring, you'll know, are you in a fight, flight? Are you in freeze, faint? Are you more tend, befriend? Where are you? And based on that, what would be the best use of that energy? Because ultimately, all of these are different energy reactions in our system that just need to be used. That's what mastery is for. We don't push it down, we don't minimize it, we don't manage it, we master it by using the reactions to fuel positive change. So that is the stress mastery formula. We assess what's going on, we appreciate that it's actually trying to help us, which is hard to do unless you really practice that. That's that mindset piece. Assess, appreciate, and then adjust. We take action and we shift reactions into responses that actually use our whole brain. So with that, the 7 habits that I think are most important The first one is watch your words. I cannot tell you how often I go back to this very, very simple step. It's the first thing we talk about in the Stress Mastery course. Ask you to actually define stress, to think about what happens when you use certain words. And it goes back to actually even teaching this and focusing on this all the time. That darn word is in my vocabulary so often that I've been trying, going back to step one, to be really conscious of this and choose a different word. So what would be another word you could use instead of stress? Because stress doesn't mean anything. Okay, if you think about what stress is what happens when demand exceeds capacity. That's my working definition, and there's some other definitions out there that I like, but it's not good and it's not bad, it's just an experience. So is there another way? Linda's already one step ahead of me. Is there another way to explain what's happening? I'd love for you to type in the chat box. Linda says challenge. That's one of my favorites. There's a challenge happening right now, right? I'm feeling challenged, and that's going all the way back to the basics of threat versus challenge, right? The physiology, if you perceive something as a challenge, your physiology is different. It's more enhancing, like in acute stress. If you think of it as a threat, you have more of that long-term chronic stress reaction. So the physiology is literally different, and that's so important because the physiology and your sensations in your body are going to change the lens through which you see the world. So Lauren says it's an opportunity. Many times it's an opportunity for growth. Now, sometimes I realize it's hard to go from feeling overwhelmed, feeling, well, so we've got so many negative words. Unfortunately, I don't even want to say the ones I use because typically it's like I'm freaking out. That tends to be my theme right now. I'm freaking out. And so when I'm saying I'm freaking out, or I can't do this anymore, or I'm just so overwhelmed, that narrative is really triggering a lot of sensations in my body that are saying, wait a second, she can't handle this. So skip the adrenaline. Let's go straight to long-term cortisol production. Like, we need to shut down all of the resources that aren't urgent in the moment, which means healthy digestion, strong social connections, creativity, innovation, cognitive flexibility, the relaxation response, like all the good stuff that our brain does to help us to be effective. It's turned off when we convince ourselves that we can't cope with what's in front of us. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's just a flip of a word and the whole thing is going to change for you. That's why there's 6 more habits, because the other habits are going to support this. But I want you to just start to notice and catch yourself how often you're using the word stress or stressed or stressed out. And if there's another word, the one I like to use is adventure. I like to think that I'm on an adventure right now. And to me, if I think about adventure, I think about it being curious and being playful and being with other people who can be on this journey with me. And that totally changes my experience. So I want to invite you to think about that for yourself. What are some other words you could potentially use instead of stress or stressed out? Number 2 is shift your state. Now, this will help you to watch your words, and actually many times I do too before I do number 1. Number 1 to me is kind of this umbrella overarching. We got to do this all the time. Like, we got to really be careful of the words we use ourselves with other people. Number 2 is what I did when I smelled my aromatherapy, or what happens when I squeeze my Melvin monkey, or what happens when I listen to guided audio or relaxing music, is you change your chemistry in your body to allow your brain to come back online. So if you think about that framework I told you of sensing and then feeling and then thinking, and I can actually go back to this if you bear with me for a moment here, that we process information from the bottom up. So we sense safety before we feel connection, before we think logically. And so if we just say, I'm going to watch my words, but our body is going through a sensation of not feeling safe, it's really difficult to change our words. So sometimes do something different. smell something different. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but aromatherapy is so powerful for shifting your state because it actually goes straight through your nose to the limbic system, the middle part of the brain, and gives it a direct hit of a different sensation. This one, my favorite right now, and I use lots of different blends by my friend Jody Cohen, owns a company called Vibrant Blue Oils. This is amazing. This is an emotion balance blend. And I actually chose it because of a project I'm doing for Recharge, where we're looking for a particular blend to enhance negative ions in the air and kind of mimic the effect of being at the ocean. This is for my Beach Brain research project. So this is the one I'm using now, and I love it. There's a lot of different aromatherapies out there. What I love about Jody's is she creates blends that have very specific sensory changes. She also has a parasympathetic blend you can put right behind your ear, which is where your vagus nerve actually comes closest to the skin, and it helps to tone the vagus nerve, which helps with relaxation. I'm going to do another webinar just on aromatherapy, so if that's of interest to you, let me know, and I'll tell you more about that. But also, could be going for a walk. Right before this, I was feeling, I'm going to say the F word, that's my freak out word. I was feeling not adventurous, but I just decided I got to get outside and I got to go for a walk. So I actually left workout clothes on today so that anytime I felt that, I could go shift my state, go for a walk, get some fresh air, just for a couple of minutes. That's the oscillation that we really have to build in. So I want to ask you, for those of you who are live with me, what can you do, or what do you do in the moment to shift your state when you physically feel anxiety? To me, this is more of kind of an anxious in your body or an overwhelmed. It could be sensory overload. Certainly if you're stress sensitive, that's going to be a challenge for you. So Sammy mentions taking a nap, which could be a great way to do that. I would tell you, for those of you who struggle with taking a nap, you can do things to help you with that too, like listening to music. I went to take a nap before I went for a walk. It didn't work out for me because my mind was racing. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Talia says a cup of tea. What a lovely experience. Absolutely have a cup of tea, which also has health benefits. The warming of the tea is going to actually enhance the relaxation response. So Megan mentions music, listening to a podcast to change your mood. Oh, I do that all the time. Some amazing podcasts. Sometimes they're spiritual, sometimes they're educational, sometimes they're just funny to change our mood. Great suggestion. So Kay mentions movement as well, taking the stairs. Love that when I'm in an office. That tends to be my go-to. Barbara mentions deep breathing, so powerful. We'll also do another webinar just on deep breathing. That's a big part of the stress mastery course, I will tell you, is doing the breath training and the recharge training. Carol talks about music. Music, very similar to aromatherapy, can have a direct shift on our senses because of the connection with the limbic system through our auditory channels. So beautiful. Lauren, take a walk. Talia, massage. Oh my gosh, massage is my favorite, although I can't always do that on my own. Even just some self-massage can be really helpful as well, or I've got a little, I don't even know what it is, but something I can kind of run across my back that can be really helpful for that too. So great examples. Number 3. Mind the gap. This is a big one. I feel like this is probably a longer conversation, but the gap I'm talking about here is very specific. It's the gap between expectation and appreciation. So could someone type out box for me? It's the gap between expectation and appreciation. We put so many expectations on ourselves and on everybody else. I know for me, the perfectionist in me really struggles with this one. And so a lot of times what I notice happening is I'm spending all my time in expectations of myself and everybody else, and not enough time in appreciation of what I'm doing well and what other people are bringing to me as well. Thank you both, Kay and Carol, 2 of our awesome mastermind folks. So important to pay attention to this, because depending on what's going on there, you can make a quick shift by focusing on appreciation or minimizing expectation. In many ways, I see that as the demand capacity gap as well. It's just kind of more of an internal state of awareness. Are we spending enough time and energy paying attention to what we appreciate? And if not, What can we do? I've got a gratitude journal. I was going to hold it up, but it seems to have slipped away, which is bad. That means I didn't do it. So I'm going to do it right after this webinar. A gratitude journal I got from my last speaking engagement. And I do gratitudes a lot, but there was something about getting that as a gift. And they wrote a nice note to me in the front. So as soon as I open it, I get that gratitude from the group I was working with. And then I go in and I write gratitudes as well. And I try to share them with the important people in my life. So it's not that we don't want to ever expect anything of ourselves or other people. We do. It's just when that gap gets to be too extreme. Number 4 is to take imperfect action. And yes, Kay, I hear myself saying this because she keeps reminding me that this is one of my habits and it's in the Stress Mastery course and I'm not very good at it yet, so I'm working on it. It is so easy, especially stress-sensitive people who tend to really kind of fixate on perfectionism, and we tend to just get hijacked by our own fear of disappointing people. I've done so many courses, I've done so many books, and it's just terrifying to get it out there. In fact, it makes me laugh. It's why the 7 Habits book isn't out yet. It's why my Stress Mastery course is about a year behind being launched, and the LinkedIn course, I was talking about the same thing again today. It's like, man, we can just drive ourselves crazy wanting everything to be perfect instead of getting the information out there to the world and taking some sort of action, because as soon as we take action, it alleviates the hijack of stress. Even if it's not the ultimate action that we want to take, even if it's not even in the right direction, the motion of taking action changes our stress experience. So if you can imagine again that brain and the 1, 2, 3 model, bottom to top, that there's literally an energy and information hijack happening in the brain when we have that negative chronic stress that just needs to be released so that we can be creative and flexible and pull people around us and all of that. But moving in some direction is better. I love that, Sammy. Done is better than perfect. I was going to say, someone said a similar quote to me recently, and I think it was progress beats perfection. Kay's got one. I knew she had one. Completion versus perfection. I think it was Kay. It might have been someone else too who shared the acronym FOCUS. It's like focus, follow one course until, I don't remember what the S was, satisfied or something, but follow one course until something. If anyone knows that acronym, type it in the chat box so that I can share it with everybody. But it was something about solution or completion or something. And I loved that because so often we just get stuck in our own analysis paralysis. And so it's important to take some action. And habit number 5 is also a tough one, but probably for me is the most important, at least right now, although they're all important, and it's to use pain or pressure. Doesn't have to be pain, though. I tend to think about it as pain. Sorry, my little squirrel brain, but yes, follow one course until successful. Why couldn't I think of successful? I was like, satisfied, not satisfied. That's awesome. That's funny because that just tells you how my brain works. Successful, hello. We'll have to debrief that later. There's a mental block there. And you guys, I just want to encourage all of you who are creative and putting content out there. It happens to all of us. You can see someone who's created a lot of content and has a lot of success and not realize how debilitating this can be, and that we all really need each other. We need to support each other through this process. It's why we're building this stress mastery community, to have people who can cheer each other on, because we all struggle with this. So number 5 is use pain or pressure as a pathway to passion. I feel like I should probably change this back to pressure. I go back and forth. I think depending on where I am. I think when I'm in a situation where I'm experiencing pain, and to me, stress can get to that point where it's really that overwhelming and anxiety really takes over or depression takes over and it's painful. I have learned that if I can lean into that and learn from it and use it, I can then find my passion, because a lot of times it's through those experiences that we find what we're most passionate about. The whole reason I'm doing this is because I'm passionate about helping other people like myself who struggle with stress that becomes debilitating at times. I like pressure better too, Sammy, and I think what it does is it illustrates, and I think in the book I actually use both. It illustrates for people that we can use it when it's at that pressure place. And in fact, I don't have it in this slide deck, but I show it often. It's a pressure performance curve that actually is a bell curve that shows that we actually need some pressure to stimulate peak performance. Sometimes people think of it as stress performance curve, and we use that a lot in the stress mastery course and in our coaching to help people understand where they are in that. So with no pressure, we tend to not adapt or grow. With some pressure, with some stress, stimulation, whatever you want to call it, we then trigger that adaptation process. I think for me, absolutely, we're trying to catch it when it's pressure. And I also want to speak to the people here, or for those of you who work with people, I want to speak to the people who are actually in pain, because I think especially for stress sensitive people, but certainly for everyone, depending on what you're dealing with, stress can be painful if we don't use it for something, if we just keep pushing it down. And I know many of you are health coaches and teachers and mentors, and I just want you to, I guess, keep that in mind, and maybe there's a conversation to have around that we want to use pressure as pathway to passion, but when we get to that place and we do feel really stuck, we can, with each other, lean into it and be courageous enough to learn from it. And I have found that most of the people that I really love learning with have experienced pain in their lives that they've learned to turn into their passion. Certainly in comedy, even though that sounds like a totally different topic, it's related. A lot of comedians have dealt with a lot of pain, and a lot of them have used that to fuel their comedy. Unfortunately, too often, it's used as a mask for the pain, and so it's not really being expressed necessarily in a healthy way. But a lot of comedians are able to do that and actually use their comedy as a platform, right? So you're thinking about the same people I am as well. Robin Williams, Tracy Morgan. I cannot think of the person. Hannah Gadsby, I think is her name. I just commented on an article about her comedy, which wasn't really comedy. It was much more of a platform to express serious pain in a show called Nanette, which is really interesting. So I'd encourage, it's not for everybody, but I think many of you would probably enjoy that. And Wissam mentions pressure may lead to pain and probably anxiety. Does this also include anxiety? I would say absolutely. So I think most people here know I'm very open about my own experiences with anxiety, started when I was a child, and still gets triggered on a regular basis. I work the stress mastery process every single day to the best of my ability, some days better than others. So I know, experiencing anxiety, that it is either extremely uncomfortable or sometimes painful. And if it continues for too long, it will actually be painful because it will show up with irritable bowel, chronic fatigue, actually potentially trigger even more toxic things that I don't want to talk about on today's webinar because it's stressful. But we have to realize the magnitude really of this chronic unmanaged stress, and anxiety is one of those things. It's just a physical manifestation of chronic unmanaged stress that can be reprogrammed. It's a little bit more difficult, so it's not a 5-step process. But I will say that the habits we're talking about are the same. The way we do it might be different. So shifting your state, actually we may use something in a more clinical experience, like cranial electrotherapy stimulation happens to be one technique that's used for anxiety and PTSD, neurofeedback, massage therapy. There's a lot of therapeutic things we can do for anxiety to help shift state better for people who are really struggling with that. So Sammy mentions Hashimoto's and insulin resistance, most likely stress-induced. Megan, great EMDR, which is another great clinical technique that's helpful for a lot of people struggling with anxiety. Acupuncture, acupressure, there's so many we could talk about here, right? So if you have other ones that you want to share in the chat box that you've experienced or you've learned about or research that you want to share, please share those. It's great to get those from each other. So those first 5, I want to make sure I'm keeping on time here, so I'm going to start wrapping up so we can do some Q&A as needed. Those first 5 are all discussed in depth in the Stress Mastery program. And by the way, it was not my intention to leave off the second 2. I had decided I was going to do the Stress Mastery course based on the 7 habits. And then I decided I didn't want to do that because I wasn't sure that it quite fit. There goes my monkey mind again, right? So I took the habits out. Then as I built the Stress Mastery course, the habits came back in. But in order to not have the whole entire program take forever, I just naturally and organically concluded after this. And then we talk about the other ones, but not really like obviously. This is a perfect place to talk about them, obviously, because they are so important and they actually fit into the Stress Mastery program as a whole, not just the online course, but everything we're doing. I want to just mention here that Peggy mentions that EMDR helped a lot with anxiety around flying. I did not have a good experience with EMDR, but I know so many people that have, so I still highly recommend it. It goes to how important it is to personalize your approach and find a good practitioner who can kind of help guide you through that practice. Mine wasn't a bad experience, so I still say try it. I just didn't get the relief that I got from other modalities. EMDR it's an eye movement, and so I don't actually know what it stands for, but it's actually an eye movement process that you do with a trained practitioner. I know someone on here can tell us exactly what it stands for. I should know because I talk about it a lot, but I can never. It's like a rapid eye movement desensitization, but that doesn't follow the right order there. So someone's typing it in now, and then I'll share it. I was close. So eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. Thank you, Jennifer. So I was close. And a good trained practitioner can really help. So it just has to do with the eyes and the connection with the eye and the brain, and really great research. So very well researched. Get a trained practitioner, definitely try it out. And if you are a practitioner, I would suggest looking into it. It also reminds me of things like tapping, which is another one that a lot of people have had great benefit with. A lot of people have done good research with, so I always recommend and support it. For me personally, it wasn't as effective. So I love working with individuals to kind of fine tune what is going to be most effective. And the assessments that we have and the assessments that we're continuing to create are all designed to help move you towards that faster. So again, for the practitioners who want to get involved with our Stress Mastery professional training, which is still evolving and growing and shaping, and hopefully will be ready next year. But if you want to be involved with that, you can certainly send me an email so that I can plug you into that community as it evolves. Because these assessments, I think, are going to be really important to help us shortcut the solutions that are going to be most effective, rather than here's 1,000 ways you can manage stress, or here's a book to read, or even try these 3 things. It can be really discouraging. I know one of my experiences, I got the top 3 recommendations, none of which for me ended up working. And so I felt like I was broken and there was no way to fix me. Well, it just turns out that there's like 1,003 things you could try, not just 3. So it can be overwhelming to try to figure out the right pathway. But there's certainly some that I would always start with, especially breathing exercises, especially anything you can do physiologically to change the state, physical exercise. And I think most of you know my go-to 3. The 3 I have to do are movement, physical exercise, meditation, for sure, and mirth, which is humor. Those are the 3 have-tos for me. So let me give you the next 2 here. Number 6 is serve first. And this, I feel like a lot of you are going to just kind of instantly connect with this, and a lot of you are going to be like, that makes no sense, because I don't know that this follows like a logical, linear process. But as I was going through my own journey, I ended up getting involved with volunteering. And it was a big tipping point for me to just go serve, to just get out of my own head, to just go do something good for someone else. I didn't talk about it. It was something I did with my husband. He actually does it every week. He's there right now. It has changed in the areas that I have chosen to serve, but I think having something where you're actually just focused on helping other people, not to the point of overwhelming yourself. So you have to be really careful here that you're also recharging your own energy and not giving it all away. But as you start to recharge, if you can find a focus of one little thing that you can do of kindness and compassion for other people, and it could be something as small as sharing a gratitude with somebody every day, being a humor buddy for someone every day, which my humor buddy does for me, which I love. It could be just how you treat people that you come across. It could be just a certain time frame of your day where you just decide you're going to, spread positivity to the world. It could be doing loving kindness meditation, which sometimes doesn't feel like enough for how chaotic the world is, but doing loving kindness meditation where you're actually focusing on the well-being and compassion for other people not only helps the energy you bring to others, but it really helps you too. So something to think about, may or may not be an important habit for you, but it is something that in our community we're going to continue to share, which is kind of how do we take care of each other without being overwhelmed. And so we have to set healthy boundaries for that, because I know for many people, we want to help everybody, and that can be what got us to the point of feeling overwhelmed in the first place. So Carol asked, is that part of Tend and Befriend? I think that it is, in the sense that Tend and Befriend is a reaction that's primarily triggered by oxytocin and estrogen. It's why it's considered a female brain reaction versus a male brain reaction, but it's really just based on patterns. And I always want to be careful with that. I'm not saying all men or all women. It's not gender, it's not sex. It's like there's a pattern that tends to show up more in males or females. And certainly happens, there's many men who have more of a female brain pattern. And this is an area of incredible research. So it's not my area of expertise, but I think it's really important to just understand that when the brain is producing more estrogen and more oxytocin, it tends to push us towards wanting to either take care of other people or create strong relationships. And so a lot of times when women are experiencing stress, that's their go-to strategy, and also how they want to be cared for is nourishment or communication with other people. And it gets missed too often in our stress management solutions. So it could be that for more of a Tend to Befriend brain pattern that this could be more effective. But I still think that oftentimes, there's so much research in positive psychology about volunteering and acts of kindness and acts of service, and the benefit that we get of just positive neurochemicals in our own brain and body by doing good, that I think it's worth talking about regardless of the brain pattern. So I hope that helps. And Megan mentions here too, also called altruism, and it makes me think as well about Barbara Fredrickson's work around, I'm not going to get it right just because my brain is so focused on what we're talking about. Barbara Fredrickson's work, she's got an amazing book, Love 2.0. She's got so many amazing ones, but kind of just the different types of love as well, and there are different types of experiences and what we're trying to get out of them. So we could look at that another time for sure. Positive psychology, yes, okay. Helps you stop worrying about what you're worrying about sometimes too. Okay, I'm sensing too, like that, I think that's a whole nother webinar. There's so much to talk about, and there's so many guests that I can bring on too to help us with some of these things. So I'm gonna see if I can line some of that up in my spare time. Okay, and the other one is similar but different, and it's about social support. Embrace and share social support. So we know how debilitating loneliness is. I also always want to make sure people understand that you can be alone and not feel lonely. So a lot of that is mindset and perception, and we also need time alone to recharge, many of us, not everybody maybe. I personally think everyone needs some time on their own to recharge, but some people are more introverted and need alone time, and highly sensitive people tend to need some quiet time. It doesn't necessarily have to be alone. That's an interesting thing. We can be with other people and have that support and still be quiet, which for me is kind of like the best of all worlds, where we can have some quiet, calm time connecting with other people, and then also some conversation and support. But certainly embracing, so being able to take support, which can be really hard, and also sharing support is really important. And so although the Stress Mastery course doesn't do all of those things, we are building out the program so that the online course can be taken self-paced on your own as is, or it can be enhanced by either a group coaching or individual coaching program. And so I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a moment. So before I do that, I just want to recap the 7 habits. So watching your words, shifting your state, minding the gap between expectation and appreciation, taking imperfect action. So you can see those kind of work you through doing something with it and then getting specific to maybe look at whether what it is that's causing you stress or pain may actually fuel some sort of passion. You know, my friend Sean Acor, who wrote The Happiness Advantage, once mentioned this fact, and it was like such a no-brainer, but I had never thought about it, that if something wasn't important to us, we wouldn't stress about it. And so I was like, I guess that's true. You know, a lot of people just kind of nonchalantly go through their day. They check in, they check out, they go through the motions, and that's fine. I do not judge people. In fact, sometimes I think, boy, that sounds like a bit of a relief. People who really tend to experience a lot of stress tend to really care deeply, and have a lot of passion. So I think it's just helpful to kind of look back at that. And if you're working with someone with a lot of stress, even offer that up if it feels appropriate, that, you know, you're experiencing stress because something matters to you. Can we look into that a little bit more and appreciate that a little bit more? If it's a relationship, if it's family, if it's, you know, your career, some sort of contribution you want to make, you're stressed because it matters, and that's a good thing. It's just that we need to use that as fuel for positive change, and we do that through these other steps. So that can be helpful as well. So I want to give you a couple little strategies as you think about all of these things. The first one would be to choose either a habit each week. So if you wanted to go through, and this is originally what I had thought around the 7 habits of stress mastery, was to really practice one habit each week over the course of 7 weeks. What I have learned with online learning is everybody wants to go at a different pace. So I was like, okay, you could choose one habit each day if you wanted to just practice that one thing. You could choose one habit each week. You could just incorporate it into your brain recharge practice, whereas you're recharging and focusing on your breathing, focusing on feeling a positive emotion, and then really bringing your focus to the energy you want to bring to the time that you have. Maybe you take a look at the 7 habits and just think about how you're doing. I mean, there's a lot of ways to use this, and I think a lot of ways that our professional group will start to implement this into our professional training and practices. The other thing is to consider joining a commitment group. So right now, Stress Mastery is evolving, and I don't even know exactly what is going to happen with all of this, but I've been doing these free webinars. We have a private Stress Mastery Facebook group that you can join for those people who decide to take the online course. You also get access to a free recharge app and all sorts of other tools. We also have an incredible new coaching program. And honestly, I mean, I love individual coaching, but the group coaching aspect of it is even more exciting because you get to go through the course with a group of other people. Now, that doesn't mean you're taking the classes at the same time. What it means is you're doing the self-paced program, you're learning the content, you're practicing the exercises, and once a week you can connect with a group if you want to for accountability. But most importantly, every day you have a platform that you get to log into and check off whether or not you did your commitment. I'm joining one of these groups on Monday. Our professionals, many of them are joining a professional commitment group on Monday. We're super excited about that. But we also have them being built to support the Stress Mastery online course. So it's an added thing that you can do if you want to. And all of this is just to try to determine what's going to be most helpful for people to really learn how to use stress as fuel for positive change and stop getting so stuck with it in isolation as so many of us do. So I put myself in the group. I'm going through the process too. I happen to have some information and research and frameworks I want to share with you, but Stress Mastery is literally an everyday journey, and we can accomplish so much more by doing it together. So let me give you a couple more little things before we close. Most of you are probably already familiar with this resource, but I do have a free stress assessment. It's at mystress360.com. This stress assessment will give you part of your stress load information as well as some resources. This assessment is one I'm using for research purposes. You know, we've had, I think, 16,000 people take it so far, and we are evolving it into this more advanced assessment that I had mentioned before that's going to help people learn exactly what to do with it. But for now, it actually looks at some of your lifestyle habits and will give you some guidance as to techniques that will be effective for you. You can share this with anyone too, so we're really just putting it out there. It's been helpful for a lot of people, and yet it's being fine-tuned, so just keep that in mind. I also mentioned the stress sensitivity assessment, which you can also access, and that's one component of stress lens. That happens to be the highly sensitive person trait, which we'll talk more about next month. Very important for those of you who are sensitive that you start to understand that, and happy to walk through that more with you because it is a passion of mine because of my own challenges with sensitivity. And then this I just wanted to show you is the Stress Mastery program. This is the online course. It is officially launching tomorrow, but we have a link for you. If you want to sign up right now, you get the pre-launch. So we're actually taking $100 off of this. And it's just, I can't help myself every time I want, like, I just want to share everything. I want everything to be free all the time, and I can't sustain that. So I need some resources to help build this community, which is why I have to charge for this course, as hard as it is. So it has a ton of value. It is designed to be a 7-week program. If you go through the group coaching, that's how it's structured. But you can go through self-paced and you can go through the content very quickly if you want to do that. It also includes the Stress 360 full assessment, which has a report. It also has an app, a recharge app with it. You also get my recharge book with it. You get access to the private Facebook community. And for those of you who aren't on Facebook, I totally understand. We actually have a new platform we're going to be launching in the next couple of months where you're going to be able to meditate with us and not be on Facebook, because I know that that is frustrating for people. If you are on Facebook, then great, you can come meditate with our private community there. And I put a link here, a bit.ly link, just to make it easy for you, bit.ly/stress mastery launch. So it's actually $2.99 for all of that, not $3.99, just for the launch, which only is going to take place through the weekend. And if this is helpful for you, if this type of content is helpful, I would absolutely love for you to share this with somebody, because the more people get this information and start speaking the same language, the better we can really support each other on this journey. And those of you who know me know that I do not like selling things. This is not typically my style, but I want to build this community. I want to give you more resources, more assessments, more research. And so this is the way that we're going to do it. And there's tons and tons of value included in that. But if you want to do the coaching program on top of that, we will give you a way to connect with that. Once you sign up for the course, you'll get more information on getting additional support. If you know you want to do it, you want to do it now, and you're like, I want to be part of that group program, just send me an email and I will put you in touch with our coaching staff who can get you connected to one of those commitment groups as soon as possible. So there's my contact information. Heidi at HeidiHanna.com, my website. Again, we've got a lot of links that were on the recording. I'm going to send the recording to all of you who registered, whether you're watching live or not, so you'll be able to watch this again. And for those of you who joined me live, I'm going to send you my advanced copy of the 7 Habits book. And for those of you who are watching this on a recording, I promise you'll have another chance to get that very soon. We just want to get this out and kind of beta test it, get some feedback on it, and then I will be releasing it. I don't know when yet, but hopefully very soon. So any questions that anyone has as we wrap up? We have just a couple more minutes. I want to thank everybody for being on this webinar and part of this community. And I also just really want to invite you to share what would be most helpful. I mean, I have people that kind of nudge me when I do that because I'm always asking for feedback, and then I end up with more on my plate than I can do. But it is so important for me to know that the tools and resources we're creating are going to be helpful for you and for the audiences that you work with and you serve. I know so many of you here are serving others regularly, and I just so appreciate that. I want to encourage you to recharge your own energy so that you can serve from a full tank as often as possible. And it's so delightful to see all of you here with me. I recognize so many names here who've been with me for a long part of this journey. So thank you for that. Check out the course. Please share it with people that you know and love. And we will be back. We'll do another free webinar a month from now to talk about stress lens and specifically about negativity bias and sensitivity. I'll give you some more resources at that point as well. And yes, as far as the course goes, Vaughn, yes, the course is going to be available. So I'm always careful with that. I don't like things that feel too pushy or like you have to do it now, it's going away forever. I'm always very authentic and transparent about this. The extra $100 off is going to be only through this weekend. And some of the added benefits are going to be just to this weekend for our course launch. The course will then go back up. I don't know what the price is going to be. I don't know if we're going to take it all the way back up to $7.99. I'm not sure. So as a team, we will decide where we're going to let that price reside. But definitely the extra bonuses and the $100 is through the weekend. So take your time, and yeah, I hope you got some information that's helpful from this. I thank you for your time and energy. I send you lots of love and compassion and gratitude, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Okay? Bye for now.